Welcome to Coddiwompling Along The Tao with Noel Eastwood, and this is episode 15, and I'm talking about the many faces of the Tarot Lovers card. I'm going to look a little bit at love, sex and tantra, mostly about love. But it's a very broad field, as I will try and explain. This is a picture from the De Gebelin deck. Court de Gebelin was one of the early proponents of the secret sect, secret society of magicians that handed down the secrets of the meaning of life, basically, to humans via an Egyptian secret cult, etc., etc., etc. We now know that that's not what happened. The gypsies did not invent tarot. Tarot is a deck of cards. I know a lot of people will throw their hands up in the air and want to argue that, but the historical evidence sort of doesn't support de Gebelin's theory. This is from the 1780 era when he came around, but he was a giant. We stand on his shoulders. Those early taroists, the early magicians, they educated us on the possibilities and the potentials that are out there. So we stand on the shoulder of giants, and here's one. Even though we now know that a lot of his thoughts were not accurate, we owe him an enormous amount of gratitude. So that's that one. We'll look at these later. So where do our popular modern beliefs of love come from? So we got love is romance, isn't it? It's soulmates. Love is the most important thing in the world. The world doesn't turn without love. Love just is the most important thing ever. Well, surprisingly enough, humans have been talking about love and the meaning of love forever, for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Plato, who was the student of Socrates, back 500 BC, that's 2,000 years ago. We only know because these guys wrote things down. If you want to be famous, write something down and have it reproduced over and over and over, thousands of years later. So he and his philosopher mates, Aristotle and Pythagoras and all the others, they would sit around and chew the fat over a couple of jugs of wine and a banquet and talk philosophy. Then in the 15th century along came this Ficino guy, a Italian philosopher, and he made a commentary on Plato's Symposium, and this is his part of his commentary, which sort of sets the scene for the tarot lover, the modern era lover concept of romance. And you'll be surprised. The vision of spiritual love is an ennobling force, in contrast to carnal love, which debases. So spiritual love is noble. Carnal love, that's the sharing of juices, is debased. Ugh. A vision which in Socrates' speech produces the famous description of a ladder of love, leading up to the pure idea of the good and the beautiful. Now, in the 15th century, anybody who was anybody who could read and write, the philosophers, the scribes, the religious orders, the court people, the rich and wealthy, they read Ficino's commentary. Plato and Socrates' writings were very, very popular, and they still are today. They lay the foundations for so much philosophy that we hold today. So you can see the influence of Neoplatonic thought on what is love. Love is, we should aspire to a spiritual love because it is ennobling, and we should look down upon sexual love, carnal love, physical love, because it is debasing. Hello, that sort of sounds like religion to me, doesn't it? It sounds like Christianity. Love is pure, the sex part is dirty. And here we have religion of today preaching something that Plato and his mates sat around talking about 2,000 years ago. It wasn't invented, this concept of a spiritual love or a godly love wasn't invented by the Christians. It's been around forever, we could basically say. So is love free will or blind? Is it a choice? Well, it's interesting because the tarot actually does give us some possibilities. And if we look at the picture over here, we have Cupid, the god of love. Cupid was born of Aphrodite and Eris. An interesting mix. And often the pictures are blinded. He wears a blindfold, showing love is blind. But this one is not. He is pointing his arrow at the attractive girl with the flowers in her hair, and the boy, the male, is looking at her and almost reaching towards her. And she has her hand on his heart. That's interesting. Here is this pretty young thing that is very attractive. On the other side is the wiser, more mature, probably less attractive, but she probably has wealth and standing in the community, all those other things. So we go to the concept of vice and virtue. We have the 7 virtues and the 7 vices, or the deadly sins. And where does that come from? Again, we go back to Plato and Socrates. We go back to Greek philosophy of 2,000 years ago in the golden era to tell us what we see in these pictures. And those two, the theme of virtue and vice comes up over and over again in tarot, as it does in religion, in the Christian religion. Okay, we're putting that aside. We're going to look at some of the images that we have in the tarot deck that people have drawn that come from myth. The first one is the Hercules story. So Hercules, when he was a youth, he had a vision of coming to a crossroads, and there were 2 women there. One was young, attractive and desirable. She representing the vices of lust, seduction, desire. And on his right was an older, mature and more wise woman representing the virtues of temperance, prudence and chastity. That's Greek mythology for you. The vices and the virtues. Paris from Helen of Troy. Remember the Trojan Wars? Well, this story is where the god of Zeus, the god of the gods, god of Mount Olympus, held a party, and he invited everybody who was everybody, even some humans. But he left out one person, one goddess, the goddess Eris. And she was a bit of a nasty piece of work, but she probably had good reason. But she was left off the invitation list. And when she found out, she was angry. She wanted revenge. So she got to the party venue very early and left an apple on a tree stump and walked away. Well, the people came to the party and someone found the apple and lifted it up and went, "Hey, look at this. It's got written on it, 'To the most beautiful woman.'" And of course, as soon as the women, the goddesses, heard that, they all raced over and claimed it as their own, as you do if you're a goddess. And arguments and possible violence was about to occur, so Zeus stepped in and said, "Hey, settle down everybody. We will adjudicate." And Zeus, being smart, he said he was not going to adjudicate, not this one. Oh no. He handed the apple to Paris, who happened to be there at the time. Paris, the prince of Troy. So he had the thankless task of choosing who was the most beautiful woman. And there were 3 contenders: Hera, or Juno, the queen, or the wife of Zeus. There was Athene, or Diana, the goddess of the hunt, and Aphrodite, the goddess of love. And Hera whispered to Paris that she would give him the success of every business project that he ever started, that he would be the wealthiest man in the world. Every decision that he made would pay off handsomely. That's a very attractive thing. Then Diana came over, Athene, and whispered that she would make him the strongest warrior in the lands, that every battle he entered, every fight, he would always win. And remember, we're talking 2,000 years ago or 5,000 years ago, whenever this myth began, that would have been a very attractive proposition, a pretty violent place. But then Aphrodite, Venus, whispered in his ear and said that I'll give you the heart and the hand of the most beautiful woman in the world. What is Paris going to do? So he handed the apple to Aphrodite, and thus began the Trojan War. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn deck. Okay, so I've talked about the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn a few times already, and the reason being is that they sort of this particular order drew in some of the greatest minds of the 19th century in the esoteric arena, and they published a lot of books, a lot of work that they did, and these guys evolved and opened their own orders. So it was like a melting pot of knowledge and wisdom, and we have the evidence today. They've had a significant influence on esoteria for over 100 years now. This picture shows Perseus saving Andromeda. So Perseus, the young man who was given the flying slippers of Hermes and the polished shield and this magic sword to go and kill the Medusa, the Gorgon Medusa with the snake hair. Well, on his way back from fighting the Medusa and slaying her, he saw down on the rocks, on the ocean, this beautiful young lady. She was chained there, and this sea serpent or a crab, depends on which version of the myth that you use, was about to devour her. And he flew down and slayed the monster and rescued Andromeda. So, how romantic. That is so romantic, isn't it? That's a beautiful story. He was love-struck. Okay, the Waite Rider deck. Waite Rider Coleman Smith deck. This is, what Waite did is he's gone back to the Christian roots and turned it into Adam and Eve. And the only way for us to manage love and desire and the way up the vices and the virtues was through marriage. So, what does it say? Waite decided that the lovers should represent the true Christian love that is sanctified in marriage before the eyes of God. A very biblical Adam and Eve. Heavenly love, behind them is a winged angel, and the tree of life with the serpent twisted around it, and the tree of knowledge with the 12 fruits of wisdom. And we'll look at that card towards the end. Modern versions tend towards romantic love. So now we're looking at the 20th century and the 21st century tarot decks and artists' interpretations, and they're very much romance. These are the books and the movies and the TV soaps of just love is everything, and it's all about romance, all about Eros, Cupid. We've seen in TV and the many books published in romance, the biggest sellers of all time are love stories, showing affection, attraction, sacrifice, sexual desire, lust, jealousy, and revenge. Dante said, "Love that moves the sun and the other stars." It's all about love. Very much Eros and Cupid love, crushed and smothered by love, soulmates, and all that New Age stuff. The Renaissance love. Now, this is the 14th and 15th century Europe. The entire population of Europe was ruled by the Roman Catholic Church, and we got to include the Spanish colonies, the English and French colonies, the German colony. Well, there wasn't any Germany actually at that time, but wherever the Roman Catholic Church went, so too did these concepts of the 7 virtues versus the 7 deadly sins. The, courtly, chivalrous and proper Christian love is spiritual love. The early Greek philosophers Plato, Aristotle wrote of the virtue of wisdom. It teaches moderation and prudence, justice and fortitude, and nothing in life is more useful for men than these. And the cardinal virtues are prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance. So here again we have the Platonic wisdom, the philosophy of Socrates, and the Greek Golden Era percolating up through the Roman Catholic Church, which we still have today. So let's look at some of those vices and virtues. The virtue of charity as opposed to the vice of greed. Humility versus pride. Chastity versus lust. Patience versus anger. Temperance versus gluttony. Kindness versus envy. Diligence versus slothfulness. Then we have complex love. Now we're going to have to look at the some of the images because it's really hard. Who is the lover? Is that the lover there and this is the mother? Is it the boy's mother and the mother's pushing him towards that girl, saying, I know her family, marry that girl. She's rich and wealthy or whatever. Or is that the mother holding him back and saying, I'm not letting you go? We all know mothers that want to get rid of their children. We all know mothers that won't let them go, particularly mothers and single boys. So we have Cupid here firing the arrow, directing his love towards this young lady, not at this one here. So now we have complexity coming into it. The wife, the lover. Is it a mistress? Is this a marriage? They're married and he's having it off with his girlfriend round the corner. Mother is one and the other is the wife. The mother wants the son to marry, or the mother wants to hold on to the son and not let him go. So it's good that when we have these cards, that we make a decision how it will be interpreted. So if this is your deck, you would make a decision beforehand in your meditations and your scrying and your contemplations that I'm going to interpret this particular card in this particular way. For me, when I draw the Lover's card, according to the deck that I've got, it generally means, and I've got, here we go, we've got it in here, what I've written. It's usually a positive card. Okay, Cupid and Eros, the son of Aphrodite and Eris, the god of love and sex. The Roman name is Cupid, and he has 2 arrows. The golden arrow is love. The next person that you see, you fall in love with. He also has a lead arrow, and if that strikes you, it means the next person that you see, you loathe. In disgust. Now sometimes Cupid is depicted as blind, so love is blind and we have no control. But at other times there is no blindfold. Thus love is a choice we have. We've got romance versus love versus lust versus choice versus no choice. And that's why when we have our deck that we make that decision. Arthurian love, the stories of romance and chivalry and virtue are common themes in tarot decks. And many of the images that we see are religious. Many are pagan. So that's why we have so many decks, so that we can make choices of how we're going to read do our readings with people or for ourselves. Because sometimes you'll have an unblinded Cupid, so that he's not blindfolded at all. So there is choice. You're having a business proposal coming up, and you draw this particular card that's a union, a business partnership. But keep your eyes open. You will see things there that you like and things that you don't like. If it's blinded, your reading will be slightly different. Okay. In your readings, because love if you're an astrologer or a tarot reader, questions of love and marriage come up all the time. They will drive you crazy. Just look at the forums. This card for me is friendship, partnerships, successful transactions, business transactions, offer of partnerships, for better or for worse. And I usually settle for a positive outcome. So I look at the other cards in the spread, and I'm looking for information to see if the Lover's card is going to be read in a positive or negative way. But if it's a single card that I draw, and I do most of my readings are single cards or 3 card spreads, and if it's a single card, generally it's a positive union. That's for me how I read it. Will the union last? Who knows how long this card will tell how the union is for. And so you need to make up your mind, what is my time frame for this reading? Is it 2 days? Is it a week? Is it 3 months? Is it 6 months? Is it a year? Is it 5 years? So when I do readings, then I will do short term, very tight time frame, and I'll make that decision as I'm drawing the card or before I draw the card. So know your time frames when you do your readings. Remember, we unite or love for a host of reasons. It could be because we're trapped, the shotgun wedding. We're forced into the relationship. Is it for sex? Is it for companionship? Just that sense of romance, because a lot of people are addicted to love. All of those hormones that race when we're in love. Is it for money and finances? For loneliness? These are the things that we consider when we use this card. Now, I've written about this, the 3 legs of romantic love, in my newsletters, and I think I've got some in one of my books, or I'm putting it in a book. The 3 legs that support a lasting romantic relationship, the first leg is passion, and it's like you strike a match and it flares brightly. Then slowly the flame goes down and the match burns out. So that is that burst of lust and attraction and smitten with love. So that's basically the passion, the sexual, lustful desire. I must embrace this person. I want to be with them all the time. Just want to hold them. And when you're young, those hormones are so powerful they'll knock you off your feet. As you get older, we just get old. Okay, the next leg is intimacy. And intimacy is where we share things, where we sit down and talk about ourselves and our issues and what, our dreams and what we hope to do in life. So intimacy is part of a relationship, and there are people that you are intimate with, that you tell your secrets to, and there's people that you don't. Some people are not good at the don't bit. They share too much. And commitment is the third leg. And commitment is that long-lasting relationship. And often as relationships get older and older and older, that's all there is. The passion's gone. There's only a tiny little bit of intimacy. But the commitment is there. It could be finances, because to get divorced these days is very expensive. How do you go and buy another house? Then you've got to rent. And what about the children and the grandchildren? People stay in relationships for a variety of reasons. Now, we can survive on just that one leg alone, but it's not much fun. If you've got all 3 in a relationship, passion, intimacy, and commitment, then you are a very, very, very lucky soul indeed. Robert Place, one of my favourite authors, one of my favourite taroists, and I've shown you his book in one of my earlier Coddywomplings. He said in the early decks it was just called love, just 2 people, and we'll have a look at some pictures in a minute. Then in the 17th century it was called lovers, plural, with adding that S on the end, and there were more. So they added extra characters like a priest to marry them, angels, Cupid, a dog for fidelity, a mother or a mistress. So it just got complicated. So the early decks were pretty black and white. And then as time evolved, and the 17th century is when or 17th and 18th century is when the Marseilles decks came out, where the Marseilles region in France had a lot of printing presses, and they printed massive amounts of tarot decks for the general population in Europe. And so the Marseilles deck became very popular, but there were variants of that Marseilles deck. So this particular printing press over here, their artists added something there or deleted something here. And that printing press over there, they had their own style as well. So Cupid is depicted blindfolded and others not blindfolded. And we'll talk about love and alchemy later on. I want to look at some pictures now. Here we go. Oops, of course I'm going to get my big fat head in the way. Here we go. The seven virtues from Wikipedia. That's always nice to look up, because I'm not a Catholic. I went to church like everybody else in Sunday school, but yeah, religion leaves me pretty cold. Here I am struggling again. Okay, let's look at love. Here we have the... shrink that down, make it easier for myself, can't I? Okay, here we go. This is the Visconti Scarsi tarot, very, very early, and we've got the date down here, 1450 to 1480, and that's called love, singular. There's Cupid, and there's the young man and the young woman in love. They're holding hands. So you can see that the early 15th century decks were pretty basic, pretty simple, to the point, nothing fancy. Then we have it's not going to get much bigger, is it? See if I can get that over there. So this is the Marseilles, one of the Marseilles deck. This is reproduced at the CBD, what's his name? Bondov deck. And we've got Cupid surrounded by the rays of the sun, and he's firing his arrow at the attractive, lustful, sinful young lady. And here is the more mature, virtuous lady. And now this is interesting because you're sort of reaching towards the attractive lady, and yet looking at the virtuous lady. So when you read decks like this, you've got to take these into account. Is it choice? Well, yes, because Cupid is not blindfolded. And is that his mother? Or is that the potential lover? We don't know. Is this a mistress? These are questions that you ask yourself before you do your reading. Here is another version of the Marseille deck. You can see it's a little bit older. This earlier one has been redone by, here we go, Yov Bendov redid this over several years. And you can get this free on the internet. Just look him up. And you can see all the different cards that he's got. He's redone them beautifully too. So here we have the young man, and this one he's got his hand on the girl's crotch by the looks of it. It's a bit hard to tell, but this is Love is Blind. So see what I was saying before. The Marseille deck, there were many different public printing houses, and they had their own slightly different versions of the decks. So we've got the virtuous and the vice, the deadly sins of lust, and the young man. He's still looking in the same direction, and they're both holding him. She's reaching for his heart, she's reaching for his shoulder, but love is blind, and he's actually firing at the young man. Let's see if this one is firing at the young man. Well, he's sort of firing at that union, isn't he? Let's look at this one, more the young man. So we're looking at the 1700s. This is the Waite Rider Coleman Smith deck, and just ignore the surroundings, but here we have a beautiful card, very Christian Catholic card of Adam and Eve, the tree of life, and the snake and the apples, and we know all about Adam and Eve and the snake, and the tree of knowledge with the 12 fruits, and there's the angel blessing it, and the cloud that he arises from. But that's a pretty weird looking angel, isn't it? It's sort of a scary angel, but that's the image, and it's almost like a blessing. Maybe the red just comes out too bright there, being toned down. Now this is actually my favourite card. I can't even remember what deck this comes from. It's got darktarot.com, so maybe that's the name of the deck. But here we have a semi-blinded Cupid. One eye is open and the other one is blindfolded, and he's firing towards the union of love. And we have this very seductive, attractive young lady. They're holding hands, and he is very, very drawn to her. And over here is possible, well, it looks like the queen, doesn't it? And or could it be a king? It's hard to tell. But this one is basically saying, hey, temper your spirits. Use those beautiful virtues. You're going to get yourself into trouble. But thousands and thousands of books are written about this little story just in this card. Thousands and thousands of screen scripts are written and produced into movies and soap operas about this card. This picture here is all about the modern era of romance and love. It's a ripper. It's a rip snorter. Here is the Hanson Roberts deck. This is, I think I've told you before, this is my very first deck that I bought. It's just a very beautiful, light, bright. I like it. But here we have the angel, could be Cupid. We've got the tree of knowledge over there. There's probably a tree back here somewhere with a snake in it. But we got the gorgeous blonde here, and she's wrapping herself around him, and he looks sort of confused. I don't know why, but this is another story, isn't it? You could write a book on that picture alone. Here is the Perseus rescuing Andromeda. So there's Perseus there. Andromeda is chained up to the rock on the ocean edge, and there's the sea serpent going to devour her, and he rescues her. So that is romantic love, the sacrifice. I love this picture as well. I think this is from the Wildwood Tarot, and this is very pagan, the forest lovers, and this reminds me of that movie with Mel Gibson, the William Wallace one. Can't remember the name of the movie, but it's just a beautiful representation of coming back to earth, where the practicalities of a union is not just this smashing, overwhelming love and you just live in love and romance and everything is fine. It's also practical, because if you're going to live in the forest, you're going to get dirty hands digging up the roots. You've got to chop down trees. This is from the DeviantArt website, deviantart.com. This is where young and bright young artists will post their artwork and hoping to get people to commission them to do drawings for them. So if you're if you want a cover to your book, or some artwork done for your book, or for your cover art for your audio CD cover, then people go here. But this one reminds me of Lord of the Rings. This is very middle age. It's beautiful. Here we go. This is the we'll get to that in a second. So this is the Wikipedia, the Philosopher's Stone. So let me come back over here. Love, alchemy, and the union of opposites. Is love the union of opposites? And how do we actually use that? What is tantra? What is this magical thing of sex? And then esoterically, what is alchemy? Well, alchemy is the union. Alchemy is this blending and uniting to reach enlightenment. So how do we use the energy of love, the energy of sex, to achieve enlightenment? And that's what Tantra is about. And that's what the Philosopher's Stone, the golden elixir, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So if you want to read a little bit about that, you can go to Wikipedia. But I just like some of the pictures. Here is the alchemist, boil, bubble, toil and trouble, seeking the Philosopher's Stone. And look at this, magical symbols. And a little bit more alchemy. And even more alchemy. You'd have to read it. I haven't read what this is about, but it was on that page. This is looks like an Italian version of philosophy and union. So we have the male and female, the sperm and the egg, and there's the birth, and that reaches up towards enlightenment, up above, to be with the gods. That's just a nice picture. And that brings us to how do we use our knowledge as astrologers or as occultists to achieve enlightenment. How do we get there? Well, we can do things. My pathway is meditation, but we have a few clues. Mars and Venus. Now, Mars and Venus are the two opposites. Well, they're the opposites of the male and female, and we can unite them. Now, there's a meditation that came to me only about a month ago of using the symbols in meditation. So what you can do is you enter that light trance state, bring in that symbol, the symbol of Venus or Mars, and you meld with it. So this is union. You're uniting with the feminine principle, and you experience it. And then the next meditation, you would do the same with the Mars symbol, the male symbol, where you go into a light trance and you meld and you hold it and experience it. This is experiential. What I'm looking for in my meditations is to understand it at a bodily level, at a cellular level. When you sort of are there with those two, then you bring them together into your body, into your physical body, and feel where they locate. And then I would use my mind to blend the two, and then I would breathe. With the Taoist way is breathing energy. So every meditation I do, I use chi breathing to get them together, to meld those energies and see where they take you. We're using symbology of astrology to synthesize this union of opposites. Taoist union in Tantra combines the male and female energies. Okay, I think we've got that. So the yin-yang basically represents the opposites, that every opposite has a part of the other part in it. So what we're doing here is we're recognizing in a symbolic way the union of the two opposites, the masculine and the feminine, positive and negative. But that's just a picture. You can use that in your meditations too. You can put it at your navel and breathe it and see what it does. Same with the sun, the moon, Mars, and Venus. Here's a nice picture of energy flow from this particular artist. We got the energy flow there, and this is that meditation that I've talked about before of earthing down through the feet. Remember, the important part about Tantra. Tantra is all about energy. Okay, so sex is about body parts. You rub your body parts together and great things happen. In Tantra, you go past that. You go beyond that. You're after the energy. You're not after the physical sensation of what happens down there. You just want the energy. So you can get that same energy without the same level of arousal. The arousal is distracting. It turns you away. But to get that energy and then boom, put it into your body, it becomes the fuel for your rocket. So if this was a spaceship, then here is the fuel. And you can generate more fuel by opening all your chakras, popping that chakra, pop that chakra, and then boom, out comes the blast. The flames come out here, and up you go. So the fuel can be generated from the genitals, from the base chakra, the navel chakra, and then the other chakras will open up, and eventually you don't have any physical body. You're just this ball of energy, and away you go. We've been talking about sex and tantra forever. This is sculpture in India, I think, of love, sex and marriage, whatever you want to call it. So it's been around for a very long time. Why are we so taken up with this thing? Well, in terms of the 8th house, the 12th house, the psychological houses 4, 8 and 12, it's a union of you and your partner to become one. So your sexual experience is a melding or a blending. So again, remember, that's your vehicle. You don't need a partner. You don't need any physical sensation. You can generate it just in your meditation by breathing, because you trained yourself to do that. That's just a picture. Aha, this is one I wanted again. I've shown you this before, but the massive amounts of nerves down in the genitals and in the navel, in the solar plexus, in the heart, the throat, and then the head. Look at the amount of nerves there. That is a small. There's so much nerves in our abdomen. It's a size 1/3 of what's in our brain. That's an awful lot of nerve cells. We want to use that nerve energy and generate that chi for our whole body. Okay, so don't think that kundalini or chi or life force is anything special. It's not. It's nerve energy. We have a vehicle that has the energy that we are looking for, that magical life force that we talk about. It's there. It's been there forever. It's called a nervous system. And we train ourselves to use that, to tap into that nervous system, to feel the chi, and then generate more chi for blast off. Okay? So don't ever think that it's beyond you or it's some magical blessing from somewhere. We've all got it. We're entitled to it. You know, the question I ask here is, why do we want to blend all of this energy? Why do we want enlightenment? Why do we want sexual tantra? It's because this is what we're entitled to experience. We've just forgotten about it. We've forgotten about it. So this diagram is very, very important. It just emphasizes that nerve energy, the nerve plexuses, these bundles, massive bundles of nerves, are there for a reason. Sure, feels great to have sex, have an orgasm, but that's only 10% of the story. That's just another picture. Oh, what have I got over here? That's all the different pictures I was looking for. Okay, let's... where's my favorite picture? There it is. So this is the story of the many, many faces of love and tarot, and I will catch you the next story. Thank you.